Season's greetings. We're celebrating Christmas in July. It's Analyzing Attitude, Episode 8. We're coming to you live from the Civic Center in Lowell, Massachusetts. It's also the go-home show for Starrcade 97 on the other channel for Sting versus Hogan. This episode's a lot better than we thought it was. It's in a different location than we thought it was as well. We'll get into all that and more. It's Analyzing Attitude. Welcome into episode 8 of Analyzing Attitude. Give us an oh hell yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
In the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Why? Why should we like and subscribe, Jamie?
Don't forget, we're on the quest to 1,000. That's right. If you like and subscribe to Analyzing Attitude, we're going to put you into drawing to win a PlayStation 5. Brand new, fresh out of the box, yours to keep forever on Analyzing Attitude, liking and subscribing to our channel. We can't thank everybody enough for the feedback and the comments we've been getting. We appreciate all the feedback on our show and all the new subscribers we got over the last couple of weeks, as well as we continue this jaunt through the Attitude Era. Today is July 6th in our time. But back in 1997, it is December 22nd, 1997, and it is the day. It is the go home show for Starrcade 97 on the other channel. It's also the Christmas episode of WWF Raw. We open the show celebrating the Legion of Doom and all the success that the Legion of Doom / Road Warriors, they call them a lot of that, both those names throughout this episode. But we highlight a week ago where DX and the New Age Outlaws, not the same faction yet, dismantle the Road Warriors. They put them through a table. Billy Gunn shaves Hawk's mohawk. So not only do we paint the LOD, the Road Warriors, in this light that they've been untouchable their entire careers, we're also setting up, hey, this new tag team that we're building, this new stable we're putting together, they kind of did what nobody else has done up until this point, and they are building up the New Age Outlaws to be a really, really big deal.
Absolutely. They've been pretty much like the focal, well, not the main focal point, but a focal point of the show. And you can't ask for anything better when you have a new tag team on the horizon, and you got to make them look as good as possible. LOD did a fantastic job of that. More so Animal at times with Hawk's no selling, but you know, Hawk shaved his mohawk for it. So yeah, we're off to the races with the New Age Outlaws.
Speaking of off to the races, the show opens proper with Jim Ross telling us we're going to find out who's been naughty and who's been nice. So we have fake snowflakes falling in Lowell, Massachusetts. Mike, both you and I talked about this last week. We thought this was in Manhattan at the Manhattan Center, but no, it's actually in Lowell, Massachusetts. This is the same building, and it gets referenced a lot in this show where Shawn Michaels lost his smile and dropped his WWF Championship just a handful of years ago as well. But we both thought this was at the Hammerstead Ballroom, and it is not.
Right.
It looks very similar. It looks very similar.
That's why I was like, wow, yeah. For years, I thought that was in the Hammerstein. And then after rewatching, it's like, oh.
You can see the different little nuances when you're paying attention. For
right,
sure.
Right. We were wrong, but still a good setting.
We're right today. That's all that matters. Yeah. we mentioned in the open, this is also the go home show for Starrcade 1997. Hogan versus Sting, the most profitable pay-per-view in WCW's entire history before or after this event. I think next week when we do this episode, we should maybe even break down a little bit of what happens and, more importantly, what doesn't happen on that show. A lot of cancellations. That show as itself is a little bit cursed.
Yeah.
But Nitro is full swing, moving to 3 hours. And I thought it was really smart. Before they go to Starrcade, they kind of do this Nitro in their backyard in Macon, Georgia, which I thought was really smart and intelligent. We know that Nitro wins the ratings as a whole for this night. I think it's really interesting that WWF wins the second hour, and we'll get into that at the end of the show as well.
You know, WCW on the other channel is on full steam ahead to their biggest show of the year, as we talked about. But the fumbles, the miscues, everything. I think
the guys ending up in hospitals before the show.
Yeah, this is where I thought the turning point happened, because we're just a few weeks away from Mike Tyson and WWF as well. So
yeah, fair enough. And I mean, listen, we talk about revisionist history a lot, and we talk about winning the war, what turned it around, when the Attitude Era started, things like that. And it just, I think just because so much time has passed, it's been almost 30 years that we remember these things in time frames maybe they didn't happen in. Like I said, we talked about this on the show last week. I remember this show not being very good. This is a pretty damn good show.
Oh yeah, especially for a Christmas edition. Like there's people not really watching because of what's going on for the the holidays, but ended up being a pretty good show.
Well, and we get a reference to it later in the show too. But the Gulf War just started. Like, there's a lot going on in the world in this time frame. But Jim Ross tells us that DX has threatened to essentially come out and do something very, very vulgar on TV.
They got their censors up.
Yeah, and they actually have DX censorship ready to go. We open the show with DX in Christmas robe. The commentators, Jim Ross, Kevin Kelly, and Michael Cole, tell us we've been warned about what DX is or isn't wearing under these robes. And man, did Shawn Michaels look rough in this episode. We know Shawn's fighting his demons in this. This is pre-injuring his back for, in the casket match, but Shawn doesn't look or necessarily sound sober in this episode.
No, and you can tell on the face, like you've seen people like throughout wrestling and even probably in our personal lives that have issues. It's that sunken in eyes that it's like, oh man.
He slurs his way through this promo as well, and he asks if the World Wrestling Federation fans have been good little boys and girls, and if you have, DX has a present especially for you, and he's slurring through this promo. It's very clear how much the ladies, though, love Degeneration X. Oh, wow. There's a sign in the crowd that says, Shawn, let's put the DX in sex. There's people taking pictures when they do disrobe. I mean, we talk about the 18 to 45 male demographic. We're hitting probably the 18 to 28 female demographic with this faction for sure.
For whatever female fans we had, they were all about DX. And I can't speak on it, but the sex appeal that the DX had for the women was off the charts.
pretty much the same sex appeal that we have on this show, right?
Yeah.
Triple H grabs the microphone, says they put the Road Warriors out, that the New Age Outlaws just came on like a couple of vultures to pick the bones off their kill. And if they know what's best for their health, they'll stay out of DX's business. And then he turns his focus to Owen Hart and says that he got a win in a rock, paper, scissors contest last week against the greatest rock, paper, scissors player of all time, and Shawn Michaels. The crowd is chanting for Owen Hart here. Triple H says he's going to send Owen Hart packing too, referencing the rest of the Hart Foundation over on the other channel. And since he's the baby of the family, if he needs a pacifier to suck on, he's got something for him.
That one.
We're not even in the war zone yet.
All right. Triple H has made a lot of, dick references in the last month or so.
Many.
But why would you compare it to a pacifier?
Yeah, it was very, very, very cringe.
And the other thing that I thought with the New Age Outlaws, like them referencing, and they said, they're picking the bones. It's kind of like what was going on backstage, because they thought they were going to put them with the group, and then they realized they're getting hot on their own. And so it's kind of like weird, because Shawn's given the nod of approval last week, but then this week they're out like, stay out of our business. Like,
well, I read into it more. We might go with them. We might go with them. We might go with them. But we're going to do what we're doing in this show and try to put DX against each other. And we'll get into that.
Right.
But Shawn grabs the mic and says, well, let's talk about the Undertaker. And he pointed out, just like our Undertaker said last week, the last two times he hasn't been able to beat Shawn Michaels. One was a no contest. The other one was obviously Hell in a Cell, where Shawn mentions and lets us know that he beat the Undertaker to a pulp. Go back and watch that match and let us know in the comments if you think Taker got the upper hand there. We'll wait.
And Shawn had 18 staples in his head,
and he says that he beat Taker like a redheaded stepchild in Hell in a Cell. And he says you can ask any woman in the world, the Heartbreak Kid doesn't rest in peace. He could stay up all night. Great line. Yeah. And they say it's time to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and they disrobe, and they're only wearing little boxers that have packages and bows on them. And China has an X with a bow on her butt. And Jim Ross even says, well, that's not too bad. They said they like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and they rip the boxers off, and they're wearing thongs with stuffed front packages.
Yep.
And the X on China's butt was the X in Merry Xmas. Yep. Hunter's got Merry. She's got Mass. There you go. You can fill in the blank. China holds mistletoe.
Go ahead. If you watch it on Netflix, you won't see what's on the bare asses of Shawn and Triple H, but we're giving it to you here. What was said?
Yeah, look, there you go. Here's the overlay. That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
But China holds mistletoe over their rear ends, and Jim Ross with the line of the night. He says, "Will you look at those nuts?"
Yeah, they're crazy.
Referring to Shawn and Triple H as being crazy, but there was definitely rumor and innuendo to go along with that. But Sergeant Slaughter misses his cue, but comes out anyway and says he's got a Christmas present for you two degenerates. He says Shawn hasn't defended the European Championship in 30 days. And then everybody starts thinking about it. He goes, and you haven't even defended it in 60 days. Shawn says, I don't know if you paid attention, but I've been a little bit busy. I'm the WWF champion. Slaughter says Shawn has to defend against an opponent of Slaughter's choosing or forfeit the belt. Shawn says he doesn't just give away title belts. Again, we're in the same arena that he handed over the WWF championship because he lost his smile. So clearly a dig at Bret Hart and clearly a dig at the other channel. But Shawn says he clearly isn't afraid of being stripped of anything because he was just stripped of his robe. It says he'll defend the title against anyone, any place, anytime. Commissioner Slaughter is very much in the holiday spirits because he's got a giant grin on his face. And Commissioner lets us know his opponent is Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Yep. And right then you get the, oh God, like they're going to have them face each other. Are they imploding? And they did a really good job of making it a night-long story of the potential implosion of Degeneration X.
Yeah.
And they sold it really well. They're angry. And then they start kind of lighting the fire with, I could beat him, or I don't need to beat him.
Hunter says Slaughter's just trying to ruin Christmas for Shawn Michaels because Hunter could beat him and take his belt from him. Shawn says he doesn't lay down for anyone. We're setting up all night long. To your point, Mike, they keep teasing it. Could this be the destruction of Degeneration X?
Yes. And I don't know about you, Jimmy. I didn't necessarily buy it. Granted, revision of history. So, I mean, but I liked it. And we're going to make the comparison later, too, with Nash and Hogan's finger poke of doom.
Yeah. Much different, though. This is for the European Championship,
right?
Not the heavyweight title.
Right. And it's basically just been a prop for Shawn for the last 2 months anyways. So I do like the stoking of the fire of what you think is going to happen.
And they kind of tease it throughout the night that nothing's going to happen either because they're both wearing China shirts and they're playing back and forth to China and things like that. But listen, we put China in the middle of this conflict, and this is really the first time we're using her as a focal point in the story. So I wonder how much this was. Let's see how this goes.
Yes, I think they did their best, Shawn and Triple H, to get China over on the show. Like you said, they were both wearing China Syndrome T-shirts.
She was almost the conscience of the group throughout this whole episode.
Constantly whispering in their ears and like, I know I don't need to prove myself to him and yada, yada, yada.
Does a couple things, though, right? Like, she hasn't spoken yet. And say what you want about Johnny Laura's voice. Obviously, she wasn't the most well-spoken individual. But it's protecting the mystique of who she is as well. And I thought that was incredibly smart.
Absolutely. Like, Ninth Wonder of the World. Like, who was the eighth? Andre? He had a mystique about him.
For sure. Fair enough. We find out next after DX kind of leaves the ring, arguing and bickering, that we're getting on the number one contender. We get Rock versus Taker on a random episode of Raw, and it's a holiday episode, which should have been a nothing throwaway event. Those two guys, being the pros they are, decided to put on an absolute match and a barn burner in this one.
Yeah, it was fun. I was gonna ask you, Jimmy, kind of going off topic, because it was the DX segment, and then they flashed to the graphic of Rock and Undertaker, and it got me thinking. Obviously, we all know they haven't, but Rock and Shawn being in the same company at different times in their careers and have never, ever been in the ring together. Do you think that's a missed opportunity? Or is it because of the hatred?
Probably the biggest what if in WWF history, right? Like, the reason that everything we're talking about eventually works is because Stone Cold Steve Austin had the wherewithal to look at The Rock and go, oh, I can make money with this guy. And Shawn was in such a point at his life that anybody that was a threat to him at the top was a threat. I mean, look at all the money that he could have drawn with Bret Hart and chose to not see the forest through the trees. And obviously he had some substance abuses that helped along with the way with that.
Yeah.
But the fact that we got Rock Hogan and we never got Rock Michaels is incredible.
Right. I think they would have tore it down. Now, with their egos and the backstage animosity that we know of, who would have went over?
Well, at this point in time, we know who would have went over. One's the Intercontinental Champion, one's the Heavyweight Champion. You do that math.
In 97, 98, for sure.
Yeah,
Now,
it wouldn't even been close. Now, listen, if Rock doesn't go off to Hollywood and he's still around in 05, and he kind of was to some degree, could that have been different? Could they have gotten past what happened backstage? For anybody that doesn't know, there was clear animosity between Shawn and Rock because Rock clearly had the rocket strapped to him, and he should have, as we go on to learn.
Mhm.
But some of that animosity even rolled over into Hunter and Rock's feud, and they've talked about that publicly, that they just genuinely did not like each other, and a lot of it stemmed from the time that Shawn Michaels was in the company.
Yeah, but sometimes you got those pros that have the animosity but can still make magic, and we'll get to down the line here that Triple H and Rock end up having. I was just curious on your thoughts on the magic that could have been with Shawn and
we talked about this with Brian Alvarez a couple weeks ago. This is bad demons in his closet, Shawn Michaels time, but this is his prime, man. This is where he is before the casket match injury that we're going to talk about here in a couple weeks. This is the best we've ever seen him, and maybe the best we'll ever see of him. I mean, you could debate the time when he came back. Was he better? Maybe, but he worked a lot smarter and didn't risk as much. And him and Austin talked about this on Austin's podcast. But when Shawn went out for WrestleMania 14, like when he's walking to the ring, and Steve said this, and I thought this, he looks like he has a death wish. It looks like he just looks like it's him versus the world, and he doesn't care what happens.
Yep, he's ready to die in that ring. And for all intents and purposes, and we'll talk about it more later on, but you see the business they're doing and on their way to doing, and he's about to miss it all after killing himself for it.
Yeah, I was so busy taking notes and analyzing the main event of In Your House, Degeneration X, that after we had that interview with Brian, he just pointed out how good Shawn was in that match against Ken Shamrock, who's on this episode as well. And we'll get to that in a minute, but I went back and rewatched it, and he's spot on, man. He's so quick and so fast and just so fluent in everything he's doing. You almost miss it.
Yeah.
Just because of it looks how it's supposed to look. We talk about botches and things like that, missed spots all the time. Not in this era, not for Shawn Michaels.
Nope. He was perfection personified. If there's a wrestler that was anything close to perfect, it was Shawn in the ring, not behind. But
whatever the opposite of that is what we get next. It's Thrasher versus Henry Godwin. We find out that the Headbangers beat the Godwins on Shotgun Saturday night. Henry Godwin says the Outlaws still owe the Godwins a tag team title shot, and they haven't forgotten. Phineas gets involved early. This match lasts exactly 1 minute. Both tag members get involved. The Godwins beat down the Headbangers, whip them with the belts. That's all we got. The crowd is chanting for the second week in a row as loud as possible for the Legion of Doom, and we don't get them again. We feature them as this unbeatable, unstoppable group of heroes at the beginning of the show, and for the second week in a row, we just don't get anything out of LOD in a moment where they could have got a large pop out of the crowd.
Yeah. Now I think I'm right. I was off a few weeks ago when I thought they were written off. I think they are out till Mania now.
Correct.
At this point. But yeah, that's good, especially for Hawk's no selling.
Listen, and I think that had a lot to do with it. I know that they said he messed his neck up, and obviously Hawk's demons and all that, but I think letting the burn happen and letting it stew when they're going to be here, when they're coming back, etc. I think is incredible.
Oh, 100%.
We get speaking of the Outlaws, we get a review of the Outlaws' attack on Dude Love last week, throwing him off the stage, stomping him out, and we talked about this in the last week. Mick is having this personality crisis in the ring where he's rocking back and forth as Mankind. He's doing the over-the-top clothesline like Cactus Jack. But we get Mankind this week, and he's back. He's doing a backstage promo. And he's in the boiler room, as we've always seen Mankind be. And Mick says, I know what you're thinking. Here's Mankind to fight Dude Love's battles for him. Why can't Dude fight them themselves? But when you break Dude Love's ribs, mine hurt too. This promo was so good,
Awesome.
and just a peek into the mind of somebody that's going through this mental disorder of these three personalities and how hurting Dude Love hurts Mankind, and that's why we have Mankind this week.
Yes, I loved it, and it plays into him battling with his personalities. And as we'll see soon, there's another one along the horizon that we're about to see. But I love the setting, and I love how he's pretty much putting over Billy and Dog, because they are on the ups. And I don't know. I'm enjoying the storyline for what it is. I know we have a lot of seeds planted tonight for WrestleMania, but I was so on board with this, and we got more promos later on with them.
Yeah, and he says it feels better to give than to receive. He's going to give them the beating of their lives. So we're teasing that we're going to get Mick Foley, aka Mankind, aka Mick Foley, and the Outlaws at some point again tonight. Remember the story we're telling here. Dude Love beats Billy Gunn. Road Dogg hits him with a chair and leaves him laying. Dude Love beats Road Dogg. They throw him off the stage and leave him laying. The Outlaws have gotten up on Mick Foley 2 weeks in a row. It's the holiday season. Mankind has returned, the more dangerous of the personalities. What happens this week, we'll tell you later in the show as well. But speaking of last week, we flashed back, and I don't know how you felt about this. We talked about the pacifier segment earlier in the show. This just was, as a father now, this hit really weird to me. We got to look back at last week. It's Santa comes out and says he wants Sable to come sit on his lap. And one of the WWE officials says Sable's not coming out, but here's Santa's present. And they give him an 11-year-old boy for this creep to sit on his lap. And Santa asks this little boy if he's his present for Christmas. We've clearly given this kid a WWF hat to sit in the ring as a bribe to do this with. Santa Claus kicks him out of the ring. Out comes Stone Cold Steve Austin. Santa Claus says, "Merry Christmas, Mr. Austin." Stone Cold tells him to shut up. Stone Cold says, "If you're the real Santa Claus, what does old Stone Cold get when he was opening up in a can when he was 6 years old?" And Santa says, "A Barbie doll and tiddlywinks." Stone Cold says, "If you don't think this is the real Santa, give me a hell no." Crowd in unison, no. "Oh, hell no." And we know what happens. Stunner leaves Santa Claus laying, and obviously the kid gets a picture with Stone Cold Steve Austin. But
do you know who that kid was?
I don't.
It was the Usos' younger brother, Jeremiah. Because
was it really?
I saw it. I was like, "That's an Uso," and then I looked it up, and
I actually tried looking up, but I couldn't find anything on it. I'm glad you're
Jay.
able to
Jay, I guess, confirmed, because everyone thought it was either him or Jimmy, that it was their younger brother. That actually, I think, is the only one that's not involved with the business. Jeremiah.
Yeah.
But yeah. And by the way, the Santa character was not a professional wrestler, just some guy from Massachusetts.
I believe he's a politician. I couldn't. I was trying to find it out because Jim Cornette makes the comment. It's awesome. Maybe the mayor of this town after that. So I think it was somebody directly involved in the public eye from Lowell, Massachusetts. But just a really, really, really cringy segment in 2025.
Yeah, and it was pre-taped, and it's not the same setting that we're seeing live, right? Well, as the live show right now, and it's, I don't know. I was
the live show 18 years ago.
Do you think this show hurt not having Austin live?
Well, I'm sure there were people in the crowd that were disappointed, but the people watching at home got this. But listen, this is still a pretty good show despite that. And we know how much Steve talked about later in life, missing holidays and being on the road and things of that nature. And you have to wonder how much he's still dealing with the injured neck and the Owen Hart situation. We got to get him ready for Mania. We have to have him in top shape because we know what's coming. And listen, he's about to have a really, really, really long night in January, the Royal Rumble too.
Yes. I think it was fine especially for the people at home. Maybe a little disappointing, like you said, for the live crowd, but
they got to see Triple H's rear end in the thong. I think they got enough.
They're fine. Game time.
Speaking of which, we cut back to the DX locker room, and Hunter and Shawn are arguing. Hunter says he's sick of Shawn running around telling everyone he's better than him, and we get a promo about how before we get to that, Shawn leaves the locker room and shoves the cameraman out of the way, and we're teasing, hey, they didn't know the camera was here. They're having this argument. There's real dissension in the DX ranks.
Yep. They played it off good. And the whole "you think you're better than me" kind of has been a long running gag throughout the relationship of Shawn and Triple H, because I mean, Shawn is better, but
I mean, listen, he's also the greatest of all time, so.
Right? Yeah, it's gotta, in a way, you gotta think Triple H, and I'm sure he agrees that Shawn's better, but it's got to be a thing that kind of just gets at him with how big of a star he became. But it's like, you just can't top your best friend. we got the cure for the common show last week with Vince McMahon talking about
passe superheroes telling you to eat your vitamins and say your prayers, and a peek behind the curtain that this is sports entertainment. It's not real competitive. But then we start running these vignettes about the real athletes of the WWF and how Ron Simmons got his jersey retired at Florida State and how Rock won a national championship at Miami and the Undertaker is 6'10". Ken Shamrock was a former heavyweight champion of the UFC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we tell people this isn't real a week ago, but now we're letting people know it still hurts and they're still athletic and it still takes athleticism to do this.
Yeah, that was one of their first vignettes, because as we see later on in the years it progressed, you get that Creed video, like Sacrifice, I think it was, but
don't try this at home videos,
right?
Yeah,
and it is. I think it was very good for them to do that, because there probably was people or kids at home probably dying from the stuff they're doing at
not
home.
dying, but yeah. But listen, I don't know anybody in our generation that didn't want to be Stone Cold Steve Austin or Jeff Hardy or some version of the two in between. Listen, and we all know that's like everybody did it. Like whether it was off your parents' television or whether it was off the top of a swing set or whatever, we all did stupid things. And hats off to the Federation for obviously doing their best to try to make sure that if you were going to do it, you were going to know it was going to hurt when you did it.
Right, but. Speaking of getting hurt, we got more matches to talk about.
We sure do. And listen, this we talked about it earlier, but this is just a random Monday Night Raw, and we get The Rock versus The Undertaker. And Rock is being introduced as The Rock, Rocky Maivia at this point. And he grabs the mic and introduces himself as the undisputed WWF Intercontinental Champion, the best damn Intercontinental Champion that ever was. And then the gong hits. And not only was it the gong, man, the pop scare that the Undertaker got when he raised his hands and the lights came off and they let off the M80 or whatever it is, that crowd about jumped out of their skin the first few rows there.
Oh, for sure. Like we just talked about last week, how he's not a good promo. He didn't need to be. He had that aura.
The gimmick did it, man.
I kind of hate that word now with the kids throwing it around, but he did.
But if there's one guy that personified it, it was this dude.
Absolutely. And we got an actual match on Raw instead of just a
and I expect this to kind of be the same what we saw with the Headbangers, even though the talent that's in the ring, just because the way it starts off, D'Lo jumps on the apron and distracts the Undertaker. Rock jumps him and then gets the upper hand. Taker gets in a clothesline, the leg drop, and then he gets a wrist lock in, goes for old school, but out comes Paul Bear. And Jim Ross lets us know as Paul Bear's walking out, the Outlaws are backstage looking for Mankind at this time. But somehow, when Paul Bear comes out, it distracts Earl Hebner, and Kama Mustafa gets up on the apron, gives gives the Undertaker a low blow.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
my good personal friend Mark. I don't know where that came from. But
he's a call away.
I don't know if Earl Hebner was hanging out with Shawn Michaels or something during this episode, because not only does he miss this, but what a commercial break. We come back, and D'Lo and Kama are still stomping the Undertaker out on the outside. Like, how distracting was Paul Bear at this time in his career? Because apparently Earl Hebner was more worried about him than losing his job.
Yeah, and I don't really want to go back to that match, but the tag match, the illegal man was in for like 3 seconds, and they called a DQ. I was like, oh, they're actually doing their job for once. And we're back to square one here, where you can do whatever you want, no DQ. I don't know.
when Rock came out and was cutting his promo, the crowd was all over him. And we talk about how good Shawn's psychology was at this time. For as new to the business as Rocky was at this point, the fact that he knew that if he put the Undertaker down and put him in a nerve hold, that this audience was going to eat him alive.
Yep.
And he could just pan to the crowd the whole time. He does it twice in this match. And I thought it was such good storytelling and just letting the heat pile up on him before the Undertaker got his comeback. I thought it was great.
Yeah. And early on, you can already tell he's a pro, because those moves are made to listen to the crowd and what to do next. And, he went to finishing school here with Taker in this match.
Yeah, and listen, he gets his stuff in, he lands the people's elbow, but it's not enough to keep Taker down. And then it's just another, what is the official doing in this moment? Rock right in front of the official punches Taker right in the little Taker.
Right,
and
gong.
yeah. We hear another gong. And Earl Hebner just tells him not to do it. Like, clearly a low blow. It should have been a disqualification. Taker gets the upper hand. D'Lo jumps on the apron again, but Rock gets a choke slam. And man, is Taker blown up in this instant. I don't know if him and Kama Mustafa were hitting the club late night, drinking a lot of Jack Daniels, but he barely could stand after he delivers the choke slam. He gets the tombstone in, but it's more of the same, and it's still pretty good. Lights go out, and here comes Kane. We talked about Undertaker's pop scare. Kane's pyro literally shakes the camera in this instance with the small walkway. Yes. And Paul Bear says, they get in the ring, and Paul Bear grabs the microphone and says he's ashamed that he ever had anything to do with the Undertaker, and that the Undertaker's parents are celebrating the holiday season with the maggots and the worms. Taker goes after Paul Bear, and Kane cuts him off. Taker puts his hand on Kane's throat. So finally, Undertaker shows some sort of fire towards his little brother. Kane cuts him off and beats him down in the corner. Kane hits the pyro with the Undertaker left laying. Paul Bear wishes the Undertaker seasons beatings, and we still listen. Taker's still over. We talked about that. And he's still getting the job done, but we're getting a little stagnant here. And the storyline's about to change on next Monday Night Raw, and we'll talk about that. But this is the 4th week in a row where it's just the Undertaker not doing anything about Kane attacking him. But really, this is the first time he's left him laying.
Yes. Other than his initial debut, he just pummeled him. My gripe about it is that it's been announced. We talked about it last week. No Shawn Taker interactions. I understand what we're doing with Kane and Undertaker. Yep. But it's like, don't you guys got a big title match at the next pay-per-view, the second biggest show of the year? Or
so Shawn addressed it at the beginning of this show.
Yeah.
Taker addressed it at the beginning of last show. Yeah. But to your point, absolutely nothing was discussed or even showcased since then.
Right. And we're going to get to it, but I just thought it was strange. I understand the story you want to tell with Taker and Kane. And another thing that we talked about last week that I was okay with, but not this week, is that damn red light. It was fine during the promo, but they attacking, and it's like,
you can't say anything. Yeah.
Come on.
But I kind of wonder if a lot of that was because they were worried about where Glenn Jacobs was.
Yeah.
As far as like in his moveset and the Undertaker mannerisms, they didn't want to overexpose him.
Right.
I'm with you. It sucked, but I kind of wonder if they're just trying to hide something.
Right. I mean, we didn't get a Taker promo, so that was a big thumbs up for me. But and I did like the fact that he finally tried to, show some sort of retaliation towards Kane, or at least stop it, because
he's getting sick of it. And I think I wonder how much they were trying to let the audience get sick of it too. Spoiler alert. We're sick of it. We saved Triple H versus Shawn Michaels for the War Zone. They save it for the opening of the second hour. And we talked about it at the beginning of the show. I wonder how much this at the 9 o'clock hour helped Monday Night Raw win the second hour of the Monday Night Wars this week, is putting this at the beginning and the end.
Yes. It was perfect, because everyone thinks that there is we're in the implosion of DX right now, but you put it at the start of the Warzone hour, but it's kind of a red herring, because we don't.
And I love we talk about Shawn versus Hunter in this sense, and obviously we don't get it, but they were doing such a good job of planting all the seeds by even including like both times they make Chyna go down first, holding the belts to show that she's not choosing sides. And Shawn follows her. Triple H comes out, but he gets attacked by Owen Hart.
Yes.
And Triple H and Shawn blame Sergeant Slaughter for this. Slaughter doesn't really say anything. He just smiles and walks away. But the thing that we always talk about as a negative with WCW and the NWO specifically is the NWO always got the shine, and the baby faces never got their comeuppance. And even in his downfalls, like we talk about the boot camp match and all that, like Slaughter still got his heat back a little bit.
Yeah.
And whoever they were up against or foils of, they occasionally got theirs. And that was really the difference between the two channels.
Oh, absolutely. NWO was never in any detriment. Like the closest thing we got is Sting, but that's one guy versus 30. And but at least DX, as powerful as they are, they actually made it seem like there was weak spots and they could get to. So I was cool with it, and I love the realism from Owen, double legging him, and instead of just doing normal moves.
It looked good.
I liked it, and that was kind of like our little plant for WrestleMania with him and Triple H and Owen Hart.
We get a cut to the scene in the back of the building where the Outlaws are looking for mankind wearing coal mine hats and with lights on their helmets and crowbars. They find their way down to the boiler room where some guy is just looking through stuff in the basement. They attack him. It's not mankind, so we're going to get more of this. And this is kind of the start of a thing that we see repetitively in WWF TV where we get this with Stone Cold Steve Austin. We get this with The Undertaker, where somebody is looking for someone backstage. We're just going to look inside the building and utilizing the building that, hey, listen, we're paying for this thing. We might as well showcase it and use it for different skits tonight.
Yeah, and it was fun. Like, you got throughout the years, you not only just like Triple H and X-Pac and China, but the Outlaws themselves had to have a blast with like all the backstage stuff they did.
It comes across on screen too. You could tell that they were having a ton of fun doing
Oh
this.
Yeah, that couldn't have been like the better thing to hear at work is go have some fun with it. And coal miner hats. Yeah. And after they beat down the poor slug in the back, they're like, oh, it's not him. And they scurry away. Like, what's that guy gonna do? Get up and beat you? But
yeah. We get the reemergence of Scott Taylor after missing out on his chance to win the illustrious cruiserweight or light heavyweight championship after Kane beat him down. He's back tonight to take on Marvelous Mark Marrow, and JR tells us Sable's been walking around in a hot outfit all day, and we panned to pictures of the crowd, people who have Sable cutouts and centerfolds. Mark
Big
Marrow,
Sable chance tonight.
Yeah. She is very much in demand at this point.
Yes.
Mark Marrow says it comes out and grabs the microphone and says, doesn't want anybody looking at his property, but Sable, if you're able, come out of that reindeer stable, which he clearly had to rehearse a couple times because he screwed up worse than I just did. And Sable comes out in a full reindeer outfit, light up Rudolph nose and all. And Marrow kicks her out of the ring, and Sable removes her reindeer head. So it is her. We know it's her, but she's wearing a full-fledged reindeer outfit. What did you make of this?
It's good for Sable. And it's the teasing of what she got underneath it, because just a few weeks ago we ripped off the Idaho potato sack. So it's like it's kind of that anticipation building because it's like, she ain't just gonna wear that.
Yeah, Scott Taylor was really good in this match, though. Yeah. The eventual Scotty 2 Hottie was using his quickness, really good spots. I love the slide under the ring post, pull Mark Marrow out move. I loved how Bret Hart used the ring post as for the figure 4 thing, and it just really surprised me more wrestlers didn't utilize that as a weapon when they could. But I really like that move, and Taylor hits a top rope clothesline. Marrow takes control, and the Sable crowds start even louder. People are chanting for her every time Mark Marrow gets the upper hand. He starts getting his own head about it, pointing at Sable and letting it clearly distract him. That allows Scott Taylor to get control again. He hits this really cool rolling double, like it's almost like a rolling thunder leg drop thing while Mark Marrow is bent over, like kind of crossed over with the Famer. So it looked fantastic, but you tell it looked like it hurt like hell.
Oh yeah, and Scott Taylor is just a good bumper too. He's light, no pun intended, and it was fun. Speaking of moves that we really like, when we get to the finish here, I loved the TKO, and I am so shocked that we don't have somebody using that today.
He ripped it off from somebody. Do you know the story?
Is it DDP?
No, he stole it from Christian. That was Christian's finisher at the time when he was coming up, and Mark Marrow asked if he could use it. And Christian didn't think he'd ever get on WWF TV, so he told him it was fine. So Marrow hits the TKO, and Jim Cornette drops his headset when he does so. Marrow picks up the win, and he pans the crowd and picks up Taylor again to hit him with another one. And Marrow hits Taylor with a low blow and puts him up on his shoulders. Tom Brandy comes out to make the save. Remember, Tom Brandy and Marrow are feuding. Brandy gives him a baseball slide to the end of the ring, sends Marrow to the ground, slams his knee into the railing, and he can't get up. He reaches up for Sable to help him get up. Sable walks away and gets up on the ring steps, strips out of her reindeer costume, and has a Santa's Little Helper skirt on with the mini skirt and tail and all. She puts sunglasses on for some reason, and she gets in the ring and waves to the crowd. She gets on the mic. And I forgot, we talked about Chyna's voice earlier. Sable's voice wasn't much better. She sounds like she smokes 2 packs a day, and she wishes everyone a very Merry Christmas. And JR wonders if Sable would fit into a stocking, which Jim Cornette replies, I think an 18-wheeler would fit into your stocking, Ross. Great line.
Yeah, it was fun. And it's like you said, it's our special Christmas episode, so easy thing to just get her in there as a skimpy little Santa's helper and just wish the crowd a Merry Christmas. You were right, and I think we're being too harsh to Joni. Joni, I think, is just more timid and
Fair.
talking, whereas Rena
just bad at it. Yeah.
Is it just a thing in the Lesnar house just to have a goofy voice? Crap.
Apparently.
Don't kill me, Brock.
Brock, go ahead and slide in our DMs. I'll give you Mike's direct address. We cut to the backstage, and after being attacked, we get a Triple H promo. Hunter and China are in the locker room, and Hunter says he's got something to prove because Shawn's always talking about he's the showstopper and the icon, and really playing that he's kind of sick of Shawn's stick, and that we'll find out who the better man is tonight. Mm-hmm. We talked about this last week, but we get the resurgence of Kergan after what we thought was the death of the Truth Commission. But we talked about the cringy stuff with Santa Claus earlier in the show. Jackal and Kergan come out to take on 8 Ball of the DOA. So we're continuing. We are still doing the gang war stuff. It's the version of the Truth Commission taking on the DOA. But Don Callis now is a jewel piece on his forehead to kind of lean into the cult leader type thing. And this seems like he was told that he can't do commentary anymore. So he just came out with a microphone because he talks to this whole match on a microphone outside of the ring.
And I'm aware he's a heel, but the commentators are even like shitting on him. Like they already were when he was on commentary. But
I don't think he was supposed to do this, and that's why.
And it was bad. It like I like Don Callis now, like what his stuff is in AEW, but like holy crap, like just shut up.
Yeah, Jim Cornette says, "There's nothing I hate more than a motor mouth manager."
Yeah, that was a
Jim
good
Cornette
one.
Shtick, yeah,
and Jim Ross goes, "Yeah, I dealt with that for 15 years or something." And then Jim Cornette, "Hey."
The cringe moment though comes when Jackal's walking to the ring. We talked about the jewel stem on his forehead. He passes it off to this female member of the audience, and the commentators talk about how pretty this young lady is, and that he's got an effect on women as a cult leader. This girl didn't look over 15 years of age to me, and I thought this was very, very weird.
Yeah, creep. Like, I think she was happy to be on TV.
Clearly.
To interact, but, like, it looked uncomfortable. Like, not the jewel, but just the interaction.
Yeah.
and they're trying to present Kergan as this new beast, which, by the way, I think Vince has an attire picked out for Big Man because he looked like he was wearing Great Khali's stuff.
Yeah, same exact stuff.
Yeah, and the action was terrible. 2 big men that can't really wrestle. 8 Ball lost to a side slam, which
sidewalk slam, which Kergan barely could get him up for. By the way,
that's what I say. Might have been effective if he was fighting like Funaki or something. Yeah, Scott Taylor. But this thing was a turd sandwich in my book, and I wanted. Yeah,
and there was a moment where Jackal got up on the apron, and 8 Ball almost got to him, but Kergan was able to get the upper hand. And Jackal says, "I told you nobody will ever touch me while my monster is here." 8 Ball, and while he's talking, 8 Ball actually gets up and gets his hands on the Jackal, and the rest of the Truth Commission comes out. So apparently, it's not done, but those guys are still in their Truth Commission garb. But at the beginning of this, Jackal referred to Kergan as the guy that used to be referred to as the interrogator. So he's still with the truth. I don't know. It's really weird. But we get to our meat and potatoes of the week, Mike, because we not only is 8 Ball out there, but Skull comes out with a 2x4, and he absolutely wallops Sniper right in the stomach, swings it baseball bat style, and it did not look like it worked. Sniper doubles over and rolls out of the ring, and man, like he swung that thing for the fences.
That was the only, I guess, positive thing about this match is that we got a meat and potatoes out of the week because, as we discussed earlier before we rolled, is that we're like, it was a hard one to pick, but then you brought up the 2x4, and I was like, yeah.
Well, Jackal and the Truth Commission make their way to the back, and we get, again, we're trying to put over that Jackal is in control of the monster, slaps Kergan and sends him back. Kergan was not very happy about this week's slap, though. The slap happened. There was a laugh. Kergan looked like he was going to kill the Jackal after this one.
It did look like he just wasn't expecting it, and he walloped him, and he looked like if looks could kill, he would be pancake on the freaking highway.
Don Callis says something, and I think he says, "I'm sorry." Like, you can't hear it. It kind of looks like he says he's sorry. We cut to the back, and the Outlaws are still looking for Mankind. Jim Cornette wonders if they're looking for Mankind or is Mankind looking for them. They actually knock something over, and Jim Ross tells us, man, it feels like an ambush is coming. We'll figure out if that's the case later in the show as well. But again, these guys are just clearly having the time of their lives.
Yes, and it's fun to have reoccurring storylines throughout the show. We already have the one with Shawn and Triple H tonight, but it's even funner, especially when you have the goofiness of Road Dogg and Billy and the unpredictability of Mankind.
It's time filler slots where you're giving guys time off for the holidays, and the guys that are there and want to get paid are getting work in, and it's eating up TV time.
And I mean, this show was really for the viewers at home. I thought, like, because a lot of the stuff was backstage and a lot of the stuff.
It was a real nice change of pace too.
Yes. So I was enjoying it. Still, I just get a chuckle, and you just, like you said, they're having the time of their life.
We get Ken Shamrock versus D'Lo Brown next. So my initial thought when I heard this was, wow, how bad did Shamrock piss off the brass after in your house? Because it felt like this is the first match after losing to Shawn Michaels is versus D'Lo Brown, who's basically been the nation whipping boy up until this point. I thought this was a punishment when this match first started.
But then,
no offense to D'Lo, it's just not where he's just not at the peak of his career right now.
Correct. I mean, and as we are about to talk about with this match, I mean, not so good for D'Lo, but it looked good for Shamrock. And I have a theory to the UFC promotions, because they talked about it during this match about Ken's brother Frank being successful in his UFC match over the weekend. And maybe that's part of Ken's deal, is like promote UFC.
Well, we even talked about it in the Real Athlete skit. Ken Shamrock points out that he's a former heavyweight champion of the UFC as well. But when we get into this match, I thought Ken ripped D'Lo's leg off with that dragon knee lock.
Twist?
Oh my, yeah.
I really thought he tore something when I first saw it, but then obviously he was fine like right after. But that looked gnarly.
Yeah, Shamrock got some great chain wrestling in here too. D'Lo got up limping, and I clearly was selling it, but just a tip of the hat of obviously how great D'Lo Brown is and a great worker. But Shamrock hits the belly to belly, hits the ankle lock. D'Lo taps. The Nation jumps up on the ring, but here comes The Rock. He says he's got something to say, and Rock says that Shamrock must be the luckiest man in the world, the last name like Shamrock, because he could snap his fingers and the Nation could jump in the ring and tear him up. And Farouk looks irritated by this, looks over and shoots a death stare at The Rock. The Rock starts talking about the crisis in the Gulf, which we mentioned at the beginning of the show. He says, you don't care about that. Let's talk about wrestling. Rock says Ken Shamrock may be the king of the UFC, but the UFC is a bunch of has-beens and never were, which is funny for a couple of reasons. It's everything you just said, but obviously The Rock's getting ready to play Mark Kerr, the UFC Hall of Famer, in a movie coming out in October. Yeah. But also the UFC was just running ads that were paid for in last week's show. So Rock offers up a special Christmas challenge for the IC Championship at the Royal Rumble. A fan touches The Rock, and Rock says, "Don't ever touch me again." It clearly looks irritated by this, and I think he meant that. I don't think that was him trying to heal it up. But he moves over to the right side, and then gets touched by a fan again. But the Rock says that Shamrock, if he has the guts, that he'll face The Rock, and Ken Shamrock clearly nodding in appreciation and acceptance. And he says, D'Lo, Farouk, come on. And Farouk just stares at him like, who are you ordering around?
And reluctantly goes to the back. It's probably just because that was the only exit. But Rock did a phenomenal job, like playing in the crowd. Big heel heat talking about a very touchy subject going on in the world, but we don't care about that. Right. It's like, whoa. And then we're starting the road to Royal Rumble and WrestleMania for our Rock's new long-term story with Ken Shamrock, moving away from Stone Cold pretty much at this point. But yeah, it was a very effective promo, and just Rock's just getting more comfortable with that mic.
We get to the HBK interview backstage, a la what we got with Triple H just a little bit ago, and both men wearing the China shirts like we referred to. And Jim Ross asks if he thinks things could get ugly tonight, and Shawn says the only thing ugly about DX is Triple H. So we continue to just throw these little digs into show. There's a little bit of a divide here, and we're going to find out who the better man is tonight.
Yep. One thing I noticed about that, right before he started talking, JR is still talking online, and Shawn's like laughing with China, and then
this was clearly not live. This is obviously pre-recorded,
right? And they did not do a good job editing at that point, but just more good job at teasing the dissension that ain't gonna happen, but we'll see.
We go back down to the bowels of the building for the third time, and Billy and Road Dogg still looking for Mankind. They find him this time. Mick attacks him from behind, and he's singing Christmas carols the whole time. He's throwing the Outlaws around. The Outlaws finally get the upper hand, and they shove Mick Foley into a cooler and lock it.
Yep.
So we're kind of teasing the death of mankind with this attack.
Yes. And one of the songs he was singing was Jack Frost, so I think that was like alluding, to what was about to happen. And we got to do something with mankind because we are getting close to getting the return of Cactus.
Yeah, we're 1 week away from that, and obviously we know we're 4 weeks away from the Royal Rumble where all three characters come out. And this is just great long-term storytelling. It's like, okay, Dude Love can't beat the Outlaws. We need Mankind to come in. Well, the Outlaws don't want to deal with Mankind, so we've got to isolate him. No point intending there. What are we going to do with that third character? And we'll tease him showing up next week. We move on, and it's the artist formerly known as Goldust who comes out looking like Kane's Christmas tree creature from his indie days, but he's dressed in Garmin and balls and just lit up like a Christmas tree. We heard him read Green Eggs and Ham at In Your House. He wants to read 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. And before he gets started, Santa Claus comes out, but Goldust is not happy about this, but continues to read. We're playing Christmas carols over him reading. Meanwhile, Santa Claus is throwing candy to the people in attendance. Luna asks Santa if he has a stocking to stuff somewhere. Jim Ross tells her to gargle some more Drano because of how bad Luna's voice is. Goldust tries to continue reading. Santa gets in the ring, and this was the other contender for the meat and potatoes of the week. But man, does the artist formerly known as Santa Claus lay this one in, and the artist formerly known as Goldust. So we find out that Santa is actually Vader, who is finally getting his comeuppance on Goldust over the past couple weeks.
Yeah. I'm not saying I've still enjoyed the artist formerly known as Goldust, but this was probably my favorite one since we've been reviewing the show of him.
Yeah.
My thing though is like, and it's good that Vader got his comeuppance, but like I am so depressed seeing what they could have done with Vader and didn't even try. It feels like after the Shawn match at 96 SummerSlam, it just feels like it's been downhill, and then he's just looped into this crazy shit with Goldust. But for Luna's credit, this was probably their best one.
Well, and we get a scary moment after this. So Luna gets out of the ring, and Goldust goes barreling out through the middle rope, and he kind of lands on top of Luna's head and smashes it into the apron, and it looked really bad. But obviously Luna's able to walk out on her own power, and we think she was okay, but it did not look good when it happened.
No, but she's a Vashon, so she's just going to shake it off and be a pro.
It's speaking of pros, it's main event time with a very professional match between two professionals that would never insult the intelligence of the industry ever. It's Shawn Michaels versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley for the prestigious European Championship. So at the beginning of this, when they come out again, we get Chyna out first, holding both belts. We get Hunter out second, and then we get Shawn Michaels, who's wearing some like laser tag style gear. It looked really weird,
in a weird ball cap. Like I don't know. Yeah, look weird.
It looked like he mailed it in for the holidays. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, when Hunter comes out, he's also still wearing that like green blazer that was kind of associated with the blue blood. So I don't know, just a very weird time for both of these guys. But beforehand, we get some very exaggerated stretching, which I didn't think was that weird, because if you go back and watch the LOD match from a week ago, Shawn's just kind of doing this and kind of ramp it up to get himself ready for the match. So I didn't think that was that weird. We go for a lockup, and Michaels waves off Hunter and runs over and gets some advice from Chyna. We reset, go to do it again. Shawn does the same exact thing. And then Shawn tells a fan to sit his fat ass down. Then we get a collar and a lockup. Shawn hits the deck. Hunter then runs the ropes and gives us an a la Ultimate Warrior style splash where he screws up his knee legitimately. We get the 1, 2, 3, and Michaels acts like he loses Game 7 of the World Series. He's crying. Jim Cornette says Michaels cries every time he comes to this town. Yep. And this is obviously where he dropped the World Championship and lost a smile, as we referenced earlier. Yep. But Michaels goes on crying and say it's not easy to lose the coveted European Championship. And this is the most mentally and physically draining match that he's ever been in. And he's been in cell matches and Iron Man matches. And this has been by far the most difficult thing that he's ever had to endure. Hunter says, other than my kid being born, Well, I don't have one. Not that I know of anyway. This is the greatest moment of my life. Yo, Sarge, we did it, because Sergeant Slaughter has now come out, and we've gotten Hunter Hearst Helmsley's best version of Rocky Balboa.
Yeah.
But
And
the degenerates are able to get the swerve in on Sarge, and Shawn says, "You didn't need help from us, but we made you look like an ass anyway." Obviously, it is WWF's version of the finger poke of doom. No problem within Degeneration X. They get one up on Sergeant Slaughter this week, or so they think.
Yep, because it's very hard to hear audibly, but you can. But Sarge is saying, "Oh, you think it's funny, Triple H? Next week you're defending that European title against or Owen Hart." Or was he talking about Shawn? It was very hard to hear audibly.
It was Triple H. So next week we're hitting Triple H versus Owen Hart for that coveted European Championship, and it was all a ploy to get. Obviously, we got to keep our WWF champion looking strong. We got to get him to WrestleMania. We need to get that belt off of him so we can still showcase in other places. And Triple H is somewhat done being punished for the curtain call now.
Yep.
We'll give him this championship, but as we mentioned, he does tweak his knee with that splash at the end of this match, because it is dangerous and people do get hurt, even though it's entertainment.
Yep. Even if it's a faux match, which I did like the callback, because if everyone out there remembers, Triple H's debut WrestleMania match was against Ultimate Warrior, and he got squashed in seconds. And there we go. We got a callback.
Full circle.
Yep. And but what do you think? Who did it better? WCW or WWE?
Listen, like I've never been I can't believe they did that with the finger poke of doom thing, because the only reason I think you get upset about that type of stuff is because you believed it, you bought it,
right?
Because if you didn't, you wouldn't have cared. And I'm not saying that I didn't believe it. I just have the ability to go, oh, that's a great. They got me, and I can laugh about it. So
and
I don't have any problem with that. I think they did a great job teasing that it was a possibility, but
I think WCW gets too much flack for it. I think their biggest problem was doing that and then spoiling Mick Foley winning the title that same night, and that was your retaliation. That's where I think they screwed up. It's not like they built Hogan and Nash up for weeks to a big pay-per-view.
But I don't think you have to. It's like who wouldn't have wanted to watch Kevin Nash versus Hulk Hogan in that time period, right? Same could be said about this match, but they didn't give it to you, and they wanted you to come back and want more, and it worked. And as we said, this hour outdraws Nitro on the go home show to WCW's biggest pay-per-view and a story. You talk about long-time story building. They've been building the Sting Hogan feud for 18 months at this point, and it's the show beforehand. We talked earlier about Kane and Taker's segment getting a little stale.
Mm-hmm.
Hogan says that Sting is going to be stung for 6 consecutive weeks leading up to this pay-per-view. Now, we've got the element of Bret Hart on the other channel too. But the match that they're building up to the most is not Hogan versus Sting in the 3-hour TV they have. They're talking more about Eric Bischoff versus Larry Zbyszko more than anything on the other channel, because it's for control of WCW. And you talked about building things up in TV ratings. A lot of the reason this second hour of WWF did so well is the NWO takes over Nitro so people could see what it's going to be like after Eric Bischoff beats Larry Zbyszko. They spent 11 minutes 47 seconds on the other channel of guys just running down, tearing stuff, and welding things on live TV. So everybody just went, click, let's go see what Stone Cold Steve Austin's doing on the other channel.
Right. And I just can't believe how hard they fumbled. Like they had a gift, a golden egg in their hands with this feud with Hogan and Sting.
And they put 18 months of work into it.
Yes. And this is like the new Sting. Crow was the big thing at the time. So it's like, oh, ominous. He's not Surfer Sting. He is a freaking badass ready to take down this whole institution of the NWO. And we're talking about Larry Zbyszko and Eric Bischoff.
And he hasn't been in the ring in 18 and a half months, and it's going to be the first time he's back. And that listen, I know Eric has to defend his creative, and I don't know Eric Bischoff personally. But like when he talks about the reason that we didn't know if we wanted to put the belt on Sting is because he wasn't really in shape, and he wasn't tan. He's not supposed to be tan. He's been spending a year and a half sitting up in the rafters. I don't know if you know, there's not a whole lot of sun up there.
It's like, who cares about the tan? I do know Sting was going through personal issues at the time.
Yeah, he's going through a divorce.
Yeah, and I know that was kind of rough on him, but listen here, brother. I think it's up to one guy on that one, and he's not going to listen to this. I do like Eric Bischoff. I think he's a great mind for the business. Just what the hell was going on back then? I have no idea.
Right, and listen, this is the Eric Bischoff apology show, but he's also still very new and very much in over his head. And
Right.
It's his admission, not mine. But dealing with those personalities, and
he got a lot of success real fast.
Yep, it's hard to kind of weather those expectations, right? Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and grade this episode of Raw from December 22nd, 1997. Mike, the Dr. Sweeney, how do you grade this episode?
All right. I feel like it's going to sound like I'm harsh, but because it was a holiday episode and we didn't get too much crazy in-ring action, I gave it a C+.
I hate that we're going to do this, but we're going to be lockstep again this week. That's exactly how I graded it as well. Listen, it's really hard to give an episode of Raw that has The Rock versus The Undertaker on it a C grade. We don't get a finish. We're still doing the Truth Commission stuff. There's a lot of haha, and I like haha. I don't have any problem with anything that happened on the show, but it's really hard to grade it as one of the best Raws that we've seen. I'll tell you this. I came into this expectation of giving this thing a D minus because of how I remembered this episode. This episode was much better than I remembered it.
Yes, absolutely. Like you said, it was mainly for ha-has, and that's okay sometimes, but it doesn't mean ha-has are going to get you a B or A grade. So I think C+ is the most fair way to put this show. And, we're off to the races. In the coming months, we're going to be probably in the A's and B's a lot of the time.
And again, this is the episode of Raw that begins to turn the tide. We're going to see what happens with Starrcade 97 and everything that goes right. But more importantly, what goes wrong with that pay-per-view and how the tide starts to turn in the direction of the WWF. We're 2 weeks away from finding out there's going to be a special guest that's involved at WrestleMania in the main event. We're going to find out who wins the Royal Rumble because the winner of this year's Royal Rumble gets to face whoever the winner of the casket match is after Royal Rumble for the main event at WrestleMania 14. All of that and more. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Analyzing Attitude. We're going to get you into a drawing to win a brand new PlayStation 5. Once we hit 1,000 followers, please like and subscribe today. Give us an oh hell yeah in the comments.
Oh hell yeah.
Go ahead and grade the episode for us, too. We'd love to know how you felt like this episode of Raw went. Again, you can get this on Netflix. It is on Netflix, so you can watch the whole thing through and review with us in the comments. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week here on Analyzing Attitude for episode 9. That was just a glimpse into what Analyzing Attitude has to offer. If you liked what you saw here, here's what we suggest next for you. And
if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you.
Like and subscribe.